Good evening and welcome to Independent Nation Show. It is May 26, 2014, and my name is Bahman, your host. And tonight we have one-on-one discussion on the upcoming election, and the newly registered political parties. With me here is the leader and founder of the newly registered political party in Ontario called None of the Above. Greg, why don't you tell to our audience how did you started with the politics and why None of the Above?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Greg Vezina. I'm the leader of the None of the Above party, and I started this party because our political system is broken. We used to be a representative democracy. We used to elect guys that went to Parliament or at Queen's Park to represent us, and they were part of a party. And then, and only their names were on the ballot, not even the party names. And then after Trudeau, we changed it in the 70s, and now we put the party's name on the ballot. And now the party leader and unelected people in the party leader's office run our province. And MPs are nobodies, and they have no power. And that isn't what a representative democracy is. So the way to fix that is to have what's called a direct democracy. A direct democracy is when you have referenda, citizen initiative referenda, when you have recall, when your politicians can't be there for 12 or 13 terms, and you can get rid of them. And electoral reform, because there's something wrong when someone can get 35% of the vote and come second and form a government, or get a majority and come second. And we've even had that happen. And there's a precedent in Canada for this in British Columbia. In British Columbia, they have referenda and they have recall. And the government, the Liberal government, a few years ago, campaigned against the harmonized sales tax. And they got elected, and they got a big fat majority. And the first thing they did was they passed the harmonized sales tax, right? And so the former...
Same as GST.
Same as Chrétien said, me, I don't do GST, me. And of course, he did the GST, and then when Sheila Copps said, hey, we're a bunch of liars, well, resign your seat and run again, and then you won't be a liar. So, well, she was one of the few that did. So, in any event, John Nunziata got in trouble, and Dennis Mills, so they went in the penalty box, and then, they're back.
And we never heard of them.
We never hear of them again, right, disappeared. So, so there's something wrong with our system, and we need the tools of direct democracy, and we need a way for people to have a say in these important decisions, because there's some important decisions we have to make as a society. Whether we continue chasing tax cuts and giving grants to business with the promise that they'll create jobs, we're now finding out that they don't create jobs. They just hide the money offshore. They don't even pay tax at all. So, are we going to have schools and hospitals, or are we just going to have rich people?
Well,
and then the rest of us are poor. Okay? And so I believe that people have a right to have a say, and their politicians won't do what they're supposed to do. So we started the party. We filed for the name with the chief electoral officer, and he refused to register the name. And I said, well, what right do you have to do that? Well, the law says if it's confusing with the name or abbreviation of another party's name, he can tell you not to register it. But he said, well, it will confuse voters, and they'll think that they can vote for none of the above. Yeah.
Can I interrupt you? Because you touch on something that I heard it before.
Yeah.
Who decides what confuse people?
Well, he thought he did, but he didn't. I went to court. I served the documents on them. They told me at 5 o'clock after waiting 3 days, and remember, there's only 7 days to register nominate candidates, right? And waiting 3 days, they say, no, you can't have the name. I say, why not? He says, well, it's confusing. I said, you don't have the right if it's confusing, only if it's confusing with another party name, not if it's going to confuse the voter. You're not the legislature. You don't get to draft the law. So they say, too bad. So I said, okay, well, let's go to court. By midnight of that same day, I served them my draft materials. By 4 o'clock in the morning, I served them the final materials. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I was in the courthouse. At noon o'clock, we were up before a judge at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So the judge is going to rule, is going to hear the matter, and they know they're going to lose because it's on the plain reading of the law. They only have the right when the name confuses with another party. Doesn't say they have the right when the name confuses a voter. So they say, okay, you can have your name. So I got a name. Now I got 7 days.
Did it cost you anything?
I filed all the papers myself.
So if someone comes that does not have your background or your talent, your perseverance, is out of a loop.
They're kind of screwed, yeah. because you wouldn't fight them and they'd win, right? They'd say, too
Well,
bad.
well, based on our Charter of Right, Part 1, Section 2, there is a freedom of expression.
No, but
There's-
Section 3 is even better. Section 2 and to 2 to 15, the government can use the notwithstanding clause, which is in Section 33, meaning they can pass a law that's plainly unconstitutional and deny your right to freedom of association and freedom of speech, et cetera, et cetera.
For provinces only.
Oh, no, a federal or provincial government. However, the rights under Section 3 of the Charter, which is your right to run for office and to vote in an election,
Yes.
no legislature can pass a law interfering with. So your right to run for office or your right to an informed vote is more constitutionally protected than the media's right to freedom of speech. And in the case of broadcasters, they're licensed to use the public airwaves. We own the airwaves. They get licenses. And the conditions of licenses say that they have to inform the voters of all the policies of all the parties and candidates, and they don't do it. They make us sue them and keep going to court, which I keep doing. I've been doing for 30 years. Now I got them. There's 16 parties on the ballot in this election, and we'll have a research done that after Election Day that the average voter watching television and radio in Canada, 99% of them had no idea. Well, we'll take away their broadcast licenses. Parties need 15% of the vote to get a subsidy. If you don't let us on TV, we don't get a subsidy. We'll file a class action lawsuit against all the candidates for the major parties that went on television and kept the small parties off. They don't do this by accident. Rogers Cable taped all the debates for ridings before nominations even opened with the major parties. So the 1,500 candidates for the major parties are all going to personally get sued. And we're going to launch the largest legal assault in the history of Canada against the parties, against the media, against Elections Ontario, and against the CRTC, because there are a dozen Supreme Court decisions in the last 10 years that say your right to vote is more important than any right at all. Indeed, the Conservatives and the Liberals and NDP federally rigged the election laws years ago and said you needed 50 candidates or we'll seize your assets. You got 15% of the vote. The court said you need 2 candidates to be a party. They can't seize your assets. And you need 2% of the vote to get a subsidy. But the Ontario government didn't change the laws because no one took them to court and sued their asses off. So we're going to sue them, and we're going to make them spend tens of millions of dollars on lawyers. And all those candidates are going to have to get $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 for lawyers. And we'll let every one of them off if they pay $1 and they admit they were wrong and they sign a consent decree not to do it again. And we'll find a judge that'll say, well, to pay $1 to not break the law is a reasonable offer, and if you don't want to fight these guys, then pony up and buy some lawyers.
Let me ask you something. My argument always been, we are dealing with a small number of people, provincially or federally, when it comes to government. Here is 107 MPPs, right. Over there is 308, soon right. to be 338. In the past, I ran myself as an independent candidate federally and provincially as member of a small party called Canadians' Choice Party. And all of what you said, I yell and shout like you.
Exactly.
And I came to the realization that if public is not interested, what is the chances of individuals like us? Because we have the right to vote. In the last provincial election in 2011, only 48% showed up. They elected 53 members of the parliament in Liberal who formed the government. If you get all of their vote together, add it together, divided by 8.99 eligible voter at that time in Ontario, you come up with 10.99%. That means
it's a joke.
That means 89% of the population, and even if you get all of the MPPs, it comes 22.75. Yeah. 77% are without representation. Now, my question is, even though all of the things that you say make sense, it is in the book, and it should be followed through, but if people don't support us, how can we go through that?
Well, but that's the thing. You see, you gotta You know, you got it. It's like being Howard Beale in the movie Network. You know, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You know, people got to get up off. You got to get up off your ass. Okay, you know, you got to come out of the bar. You know, people got to realize that our politicians are making very important decisions on our behalf that are costing us a lot of money, and they do these things. And they alienate people and they split the vote and they suppress the vote. And they do that because the people that are active in politics are the movers and shakers and the whiners and complainers and the people with the special interests. And if they're the people that are involved in politics, then they're the people the squeaky wheel gets the grease. They're the people that run the show. And the 52% or 51% that stay home, let them do it. And what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to say to people like wake up. We actually have the most beautiful country on earth. Canada is a wonderful place, but it's just not good enough to say that we're the best place in the world. It's good enough the way it is. In the 50s and 60s, we had Lester Pearson, who won a Nobel Prize when Canada was a world leader in bringing peace to the world. And, you know, we used to have prime ministers in cabinets that there was 15 guys in the cabinet or ladies in the cabinet that were all top-notch, first-class human beings, and people in the cabinet could come up with good ideas, and we had great visions as a country, and our politicians had great visions. And now the only vision is get elected and stay elected and do whatever you got to do it. And then once you get elected, you got to pay off the people that kept you there, and that ain't the voters. Okay, that's the unions, or that's corporations and the lobbyists.
Of course.
The lobbyists write the laws. The politicians don't even see them until the lobbyists are done. Here, go pass this in the legislature. And now they're doing omnibus bills and all this other bullshit.
They shove it in.
We're no democracy. This is not a democracy. This is an elected dictatorship. And the only way to get rid of there's two ways to get rid of the dictator. The way we used to, was we took the king and we grabbed him by the hair, we took a great big sword, we chopped his head off, we stuck his head on the pole, and then said, next. And after we did that a bunch of times, they said, oh, we'll give you a Magna Carta. You can petition the king. The king has to listen to your whining and complaining. Okay, well now, our petition processes are joke. Our representatives represent the king. What democracy? It's a goddamn banana republic, excuse my language. So you want to fix it? You fix it by playing the game, using the rules that the scumbags that are in control put there to keep them in control. So you play the game. You become a party that's the none of the above party, because we're not a party. And our members don't obey the leader. Our members obey the constituents. So that's why we're none of the above. We're not like all those other organizations. We're different. And 50% of people don't vote for these guys. So we're going after the 50% that doesn't vote. And we're going after a piece of the ones that do. Do you know that if 1 out of 5 people that didn't vote in the last election went out and voted for the none of the above party or the other small parties or the independent candidates, that we would win a majority in one election to go from nowhere to total power?
Of course.
So it's there, eh?
You brought an issue of some sort of the conspiracy between the media, mainly airwave, CRTC, and so-called elected representatives and their masters, so to speak.
Yes.
If we, as an individuals or a small party or people who are passionate, who want to just rescue what we left of democracy, if we don't have access to these venues, if we don't have these amenities that is available for those who are in Queen's Park or in the Parliament for that matter, how do you suggest to reach those 52%?
Well, the first thing is that those people that are watching, that those people are listening, that they care and that get this, they got to file complaints with the CRTC. Go online, find the CRTC, fill out a complaint form. Got to go to Elections Ontario website, file a complaint. And you got to say, this is a democracy. I have a right to an informed vote. And the broadcasters have a legal obligation to inform me. And they're not doing it. And they're giving millions of dollars of campaign subsidies to the major parties. And corporate contributions are illegal. So remove all the candidates from the major party from the legislature because they are guilty of illegal, corrupt practices. And if enough people file complaints, and we're not talking about thousands and thousands, even a dozen, someone's going to notice. And if they don't notice, I'll take those dozen names off to the court. And I'll find a judge that'll order them to investigate. And when they're done investigating, if they don't charge anybody, then we'll ask a judge to remove them all from office. Remove the chief electoral officer, charge him with dereliction of duty under the Public Service Act, and put him in jail for 2 years. We have the laws to protect us, but no one's got balls enough to use them. Nobody's got guts enough in this country to stand up for what's right. That's the difference between a Canadian and American. You stomp on an American's right to vote or right to speech, and they get angry. Canadians, you stomp on our right to speech, and we buy Tim Hortons coffee.
And complain.
And whine about it. Right. Do nothing about it.
Greg, let me play a little bit of the devil advocate, and please bear with me, because I want to be clear for people who watch this. Maybe we don't have much of an audience tonight, but we will have on the YouTube. My argument is every human being spends between 1 or 2 hours in a washroom to relieve himself or herself daily. But he or she does not want to spend half an hour every 3 or 4 years to walk to the polling station and just cast a vote. Now, you're asking these people to go and find CRTC or find Elections Ontario or find any other venues and download the application and file it and post it. As an individual who doesn't want to vote, what is incentive for him? How can you just really, in a common language, tell him or her what are in stake for you?
The reason they don't vote is because they don't think their vote counts. Or they think that the people that they vote for are liars and they're disgusted, okay? If they actually thought for a minute that they could vote in a way that would make a difference, either by electing somebody different or by refusing their ballot and costing all of the parties their campaign subsidies because they don't get 15% of the vote, you see, we could bankrupt every one of the political parties in one election just having the people that don't vote go and refuse their ballots. Because a refused ballot or a vote for a small party is counted as a vote in calculating who got 15% to get a subsidy. So none of the big parties that get a campaign subsidy, we bankrupt them all in one election. They'd all lose their limousines and their houses. They'd all lose their maids and their condos and their cottages like the rest of us. But they're insulated. They're insulated from being removed from office. The parties are insulated from the realities of economics. You know, we have refundable political tax credits in Ontario, which Mike Harris gave us, which I encourage him to do, so that poor people, when give $100, they get $75. When a rich guy gives $100, he doesn't need the $75. But in the old days, the only people got the tax credits were wealthy or middle income. And that's the way it is federally. So, you know, we even have a regime. We have the ability for people with limited means, the poor, minorities, disabled, who don't have a lot of income, but they can put a little bit of money together and build an organization and get tax credits to do it. So Ontario is a very unique place. Political tax credits are refundable. We have the right to decline our ballot. We could fix our democracy in one election. And I think the answer to your question is if people knew that they had that kind of power, they would use it. Just like people in British Columbia use that power to overturn the HST.
Well, I totally agree with what you say, and I give you an example, and then I want to make a comment on that. In the last by-election we had in Toronto Centre federally, just a few months back, only 38% of the eligible voters showed up.
Yeah.
11 candidates were on the ballot.
Right.
All of the media, including Toronto Star, Toronto Sun, National Post, CTV, CBC, even TVO.
Yeah.
All of them, without exception, never mentioned that there is 11.
I know. The three parties and the three
Either
leaders.
3 or 4, and
Yeah.
I think they give a little bit of the slack to Green Party just because they have one member in the federally. As you said, if 62% didn't show up, if those 62 just show up and just cast their votes for independent
Yeah.
candidate.
He wins.
The whole dynamic
Yeah.
of the whole the
The
sitting game
the
would
game
change.
changes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
My argument always with my constituents was as follows. I'm not asking your vote. I'm asking not to vote for three mainstream parties.
Right.
And by not voting, your incentive at least is you make a history. Because in
Right.
the history of Canada, it never happened.
Well, it has happened. In fact, there are parties that have come from absolutely nowhere overnight.
Which one?
Progressive farmers in Western Canada, and it actually formed a government, and then the Conservatives took it over.
When was that?
This was in the 20s and 30s.
Well,
And,
for the last 100 years.
Okay, look, and the Reform Party came, you know,
Well, Reform Party
but it
has
came
a
from
good-
nowhere to 2 seats to 52 seats. And then it split the vote on the right, and you know the Conservatives got 2 seats. But so and there have been protest parties that overnight that you know appear. The CCF and the NDP is a protest party. The problem is that they have now become mainstream, and they've sacrificed all their principles chasing their own majority government. Their own leader wants to be leader. So it's not important to them about we believe in proportional representation. It's not important to them that they believe in the Ontario government reopening the Ontario government savings bank so the people in Ontario can hold the mortgages for the people of Ontario, and all of our mortgage interest isn't going to foreign, you know, investors or banks. Okay, we have all these rights, and we had a social conscience in the NDP for 30 or 40 years. And now the NDP is trying to be the Conservatives. Okay?
Well, I have a different take on that. I will.
Look, Andrea Horwath is not a socialist. Okay?
Oh, no, of course not.
She
Of
was
course
given
not.
the best NDP budget. She was given the budget by Kathleen Wynne that Bob Rae wished he could have passed when he had a majority and couldn't get away with it. And she had it there. Now, I know the Liberals are a bunch of lying, thieving scumbags. And we know that there are billions and billions and billions of dollars in corruption. They haven't got convicted yet. We'll see about that. We know that executives of the Liberal Party got $300-500 million 20-year feed-in green energy contracts that they then sold to someone in Europe. We know that Samsung got $5 billion. And we know that all the Ontario technologies that could have competed are all out of business because they didn't get subsidies. Okay, and we know that went on at Orange Air, and we know what went on in the gas plant. But the Conservatives, the Conservatives and the NDP said they'd cancel the plan, and they wouldn't have done it any cheaper. And e-health and the rest. But the Liberals are no different than the NDP, and the Conservatives under Mike Harris were no saints either. We have no way to make them accountable. We have no way to make them honest. The answer
is revamp.
is to have the ability just to throw them the hell out. Why spend 5, 6, 7, 10 years in court, one of these guys, fighting over they did this, they gave that to their brother-in-law. Oh, no, that's my wife's brother, so it's legal. Forget it. Okay, we'll recall you, and you're gone. Okay? You're gone. You're out of there. Goodbye. Your pension's gone. The limousine's gone. You got to go get a job for one of the guys that bribed you all those years and who you gave taxpayers money to and whose family went on vacations with you. Because that's what our politicians do. They start off as honest, hardworking people, and then they turn into something that's too below plant life.
Manifestation.
Okay. In fact, they get to the point where they're not even worth rice, that it's a crime against man to feed them at all. Okay? Our politicians are vile, vile human beings once they get majorities and get elected. Because they sell out. They don't do what they said they were going to do. The job, the party, the leader, the lobbyists, the lobster dinners, the expense account, the travel around the world in the International Parliamentary Union. I get to go to the United Nations. $16 orange juice for crying out loud.
I remember that.
All right? So if you can't control them, you can't defeat them because the incumbents are impossible to defeat. You might be able to get rid of a Tory, but you can end up with a Liberal. You might be able to Liberal.
Oh, yes. It's just the jacket changes.
You change the color on the orange. It's still an orange, right?
Yeah.
You can't defeat them. You can't remove them. And you can't make them do what you want to do. What do you call that? That's not a democracy.
No, we know what it is.
Okay.
Listen, I walked to the doors to either collect signature or campaign in 2 different ridings in last few years. And even though I am independent, they look at me as a crooked politicians as well.
Exactly.
So what it is they really give a bad name for everybody.
Everybody.
Has nothing to do with it.
Right.
They started, as you said, with the probably, and I am pretty sure there are a few of them are still good, but they are that backbenchers.
That's
most
right.
likely.
That's right.
And they never have a chance to get to the
cabinet. They'll never
into
be
the
in
game.
cabinet. Yeah.
But NDP, you mentioned that, and I mentioned that I have different take from you. Not different take in a sense of what is their nature. First of all, NDP is not CCF.
No, it sure ain't. It sure ain't.
If they want to live off their legacy, that is their problem. I don't care. About the reform started because they have very wealthy benefactors when they started it in Alberta.
Well, they started because Brian Mulroney was lying. Brian Mulroney.
No, I understand that. What I'm
saying,
saying, they rise that fast because they have
overnight.
Yes, they had a good benefactor. You and I, we don't.
No, no.
So we have to just use our whatever intelligence left of it and our knowledge and our energy to go after them.
Right.
And I am not after defeating these people. I am after better government.
Exactly.
People think that I am in this game for fighting.
No.
I am not here for fighting. They are not worth my time to fight.
Exactly.
Me. But if I am paying tax, if I cannot get a job or find a job, if the price of hydro goes up and up, and yet they pay millions of dollars to United States to buy it from them.
Billions.
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 $1.2 billion. And you know,
I'm glad you clarified that. I thought it was just
$1.2 billion, and now they're going to pay them $1 billion a year to turn off the wind plants, and they're going to pay them anyway.
Okay.
And you know, you could turn that into hydrogen ammonia fuel, and our farmers could get half-price ammonia, and we could get cheap food, and the ammonia could be used for fuel for farmers too, and we get a half-price fuel. From the money that we spend them taking our electricity, Ontario could have half-price fuel and fertilizer for its farms, and that $1 billion would turn into $4 billion in economic development, building ammonia plants and jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And then they just piss the money out of the economy. It leaves, it's gone. And you know how it comes back? It comes back buying our houses and buying our businesses for fire sale prices from foreign investment. And we're paying people to take everything we own. Our government is paying people to take our country away.
Well, Canada is for auction, you know that.
Ontario's been for sale ever since Mike Harris got elected. When he wiped out the private utilities, Ontario Hydro used to make power at cost. And the Conservatives, what I call the rape publicans who rape and pillage, said, no, let the private sector do it because we'll make power cheaper and we can do it better than those communists in the public sector. And the price of electricity doubled. Okay?
I know that because I see my bill.
And what did they give? Mike Harris gave the nuclear the most expensive power. Oh, let Ontario Hydro keep that.
And unpopular.
Unpopular. And now they switched off coal, but now we're going to use natural gas. And the net emissions are basically the same anyway, except they're paying the natural gas guys to run 24/7, 365 for peaking power. And some of them are running 12 days a year. 12 days a year we're paying these guys. And we've had the technology in Canada to convert all that electricity into hydrogen and ammonia for 30 years. And it was invented in Canada. It was invented at the National Research Council in Ottawa. Our company did it. And the University of Ontario in Oshawa has a patent on an ammonia engine that's twice as efficient as any engine ever built. And the Ontario government won't fund an ammonia demonstration project and won't classify ammonia as a fuel. And yet Stephen Harper, the whale-killing, fish-murdering, tree-chopping, oil well-drilling Conservative Prime Minister of Canada says ammonia is a fuel and you can use it to capture carbon out of hydrocarbons and turn it into urea for fertilizer and use the ammonia for fuel, and it's 100% green, and you can turn your brown energy green and your green energy green, and we don't have to build pipelines in Western Canada to ship bitumen or ship natural gas. You can ship more energy in a pipeline if it's ammonia than it is if it's natural gas. You don't have to liquefy it, you don't have to compress it, and when you get to the end, It's got no carbon in it. We're shipping all this carbon all over the world, and then it's getting burned. Well, if you take the carbon out and make fertilizer out of that, take the hydrogen, mix it with nitrogen, you got ammonia, now you got liquid electricity.
You're asking for too much common sense, though.
Yo, you're right. Oh no, Canada could be energy self-sufficient and feed the whole wide world all by itself. But we can't have that because our Prime Minister has got to sell all our resources to China and to the Americans and to the Europeans. Do you know in Norway they have billions, $1 trillion in their resource account?
No, I didn't know.
$1 trillion. Every person that lives in the country is a millionaire just from the royalties that they put in the bank from Statoil because they own part of their own resources. What do we have?
3%.
Nothing.
3%.
Well, yeah, what do we got? What's the Alberta Heritage Fund? $2 billion, and now they're using it to pay the deficit because the Premier had to build an apartment on top of the legislature? Give me a break.
I think when I was younger, someone told me cigarette and money is the same. As much as you have in your pocket, you use it. So apparently government follows that motto.
They're not using the money that they have in their pocket. They're using the money in our pockets.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I mean the money, the taxpayers' money.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. How many conservative governments federally have ever balanced a budget? Do you know that?
I don't, not from top of my head.
John A. Macdonald, the first budget.
The only one.
The only one, John A. Macdonald. No conservative. The great managers of money. The great people that take care of little people. The great protectors of capitalism. They can't add 1 and 1 is 2 for crying out loud.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Sinclair Stevens, who was a
finance minister when they were
yes,
honest.
but he is the leader of the
progressive
Canadian
Party, yeah.
which is the original Johnny A. Macdonald
Right.
party.
Right.
And we saw what they did to them.
Yeah.
So it is apparently it's dog eat dogs kind of the.
Well, I did say I was invited by Craig Chandler after the '93 election when the Conservatives got wiped out to the Winds of Change conference, and this was the first conference where we all knew. We wrote our book in '93 saying democracy. We wrote our book and we said the Liberals would get 38% of the vote and a huge majority, and the Bloc would be the loyal opposition, and the NDP and the Conservatives
before the election.
Before the election,
Yeah.
the 250-page book.
Yeah.
And everybody said we were crazy, and then the book comes out, and it happens, and we said there are going to be 3 Liberal majorities in a row, right? So after the election, I was invited to this Winds of Change conference, and everybody got together to try and figure out a way, not only to unite the right, but the idea was to bring about electoral reform. And you remember back then everybody was talking about referendum and recall and electoral reform.
I talk in my website.
And until the day Stephen Harper took over the party, it was official policy.
And what's happened?
Well, Stephen Harper is Prime Minister, so it's not policy anymore, and it doesn't matter if it was. Right?
But he had minority. How could you do that?
In fact, Jack Layton, we just found out last week that Harper went to Jack Layton in 2008 and stroked his ego and said, "Oh, no, you're the leader of the loyal opposition. You should bury Stéphane Dion."
Stéphane Dion,
okay? So Layton was in on it with Harper, so Layton could be leader of the opposition because it was more important for Layton's ego to be leader of the opposition than it was for the NDP to force either Paul Martin or Stephen Harper to give us real electoral reform. And again, it's been official policy, the NDP, since Ed Broadbent.
Yeah.
And they had 7 elections or governments, whether it's been a minority since then, since '68. 7 times they could have squeezed someone by the grapes and said, "Give us our bill." And they never do it.
Yeah, I know that.
They never do it, eh?
I know.
Always remember.
I want to you brought something very important, at least in my book. The issue of the NDP. I always argued in my discussion with my colleagues, with my guests, on my websites, that NDP is playing like a catalyst.
Yeah.
If whenever the wind comes and the tree moves, they go that way, federally or provincially.
Yeah.
At the time when late Jack Layton was in his campaign in 2011, I did not see eye to eye with his policies. In 2008, he didn't even show up in the local debate. The one debate he didn't show up. And quite honestly, although the man is dead, but I never had respect for him, and I do not change my opinion, no matter how much they spend to make a hero out of him. I have been very vocal for that. But it is between him and his party. But right now, at the present time, Howard, to me, is doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
And I think and I tell you why. I live on Danforth, just building, not block, from office of the Peter Tabens. And a store beside this store was empty because it was a coffee shop, and then it being empty, and they had a for lease sign. And about 5-6 weeks before the election, that sign went off. They put like a cover. So I thought another restaurant is coming or something like that. Exactly after calling the election, those papers came out, and it was campaign office for Peter Tabin.
Oh yeah, they were ready.
So
yeah.
It tells me these people know in advance 1 month, 2 months.
Oh,
they
yeah,
are
they
prepared.
Knew. They knew.
Okay. Then the question that I want to ask you to at least shed some light on that is, what is it in it? What is it in it for the NDP?
Well, the question is, what's in it for Andrea Horvath? It doesn't matter what's in it for the NDP. It doesn't matter what's in it for the members. It doesn't matter what their policies are. It's all about the leader. Look, in our book, Democracy A, EH question mark, it was co-written with John Deverell, who was a Toronto Star business and labor reporter and the Union Steward. And I was running for the Green Party and the chief agent. I helped found the party, and I was chief agent and treasurer. 20 years later, John Deverell's running for the Green Party in Toronto Centre, the co-author of my book, and I'm starting a new party. Okay, but in that book, we did a chapter on proportion.
John Deverell just in last by-election.
Yeah, he wrote the book with me. Okay,
yeah.
And so anyway, the start of chapter 3, which was about a complete 30, 40-page analysis of proportional representation and all the other systems and what and blah, blah, blah. We started the chapter by using a quote from Brian Mulroney. And I'll use my best Brian Mulroney voice. He was asked by the media, you had a vicious relationship with the media. They called you lying, Brian, blah, 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 blah. Was there any part of it that you actually enjoyed? And he said, yeah. There were only 2 headlines I ever really liked. First headline said, Brian Mulroney wins big majority. Second headline says, Brian Mulroney wins another big majority. 'Cause you know what, guys? Nothing else matters. And that's what politics became. It started with Trudeau, with Michael Pitfield in the Privy Council office, even though he had a cabinet full of, brilliant people with vision and ideas. But that's where it really started.
In the early 70s.
In the 79 to 80, whatever part.
Yeah.
Okay? Not in the early part of his thing, but, especially near the end. The government was run. Okay? And then Myron Lyon Brian Mulroney. Okay? And then what did you expect Chrétien to do? Chrétien gets his big fat majority on 37% of the vote, and he says, well, Brian Mulroney taught me about omnibus bills. But it wasn't actually Brian Mulroney that talked about omnibus bills. It was actually Trudeau that talked about it, and everybody forgets that, right?
Yeah.
Now they slammed 33 things in the bill, right? Not 3,300 pieces of legislation like Harper will do. Right?
They are running right now Bill C-31. There is another omnibus that they are shoving in everything from the kitchen and sink.
They'll rewrite the 5,000-word Income Tax Act in the Only Good Tory is a Suppository Act. Okay, I mean they're unbelievable. But so our politics has reached the point where we don't have a representative government.
So what is it in for Andrea Horwath.
She thinks she can win like Bob Ray did. She thinks that
She must be delusional.
She thinks if people are afraid, first they were afraid of Tim Hudat, and now they're going to run over and vote for now he's dropping the polls, and now they're going to run over for Wynne. And then they're going to think about that, and they're going to say, we can't give Wynne a majority. We can't give Hudat a majority. Well, we certainly can't give Mick Winty a majority.
So we have another minority government
we'll
again.
We'll go vote for the NDP, and then they're going to say, but the last time we all voted because we were mad at the Liberals and mad at the Conservatives, we woke up with a Bob Ray majority, so geez, we can't vote for the NDP. I'm hoping they'll all go out and vote for the None of the Above party, and I'll have 8 MPPs, and we'll control the government on election day. Now, wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, would be nice, but
now that is almost as big a pipe dream as Andrea Horwath's pipe dream that she can be premier.
Exactly.
I have a better chance of being premier than Andrea Horwath. Let me tell you.
My point is, I think with the recent interference of the federal government or federal conservative government in the affairs of the 416 area,
yes.
I think she's really either being used by them or is helping them to get a little bit more conservatives in the Queen's Park.
Well, I won't accuse Andrea Horwath of doing anything intentionally to help the Conservatives except.
No, I'm not accusing her. I'm saying
except her own ego.
I'm saying
which is helping them.
I'm saying by what she's
doing, she is helping them.
It is like either I'm sitting with them and I'm helping you, or unintentionally I am giving the game in your hand.
Yeah, no, this was a calculated mistake. Now, and I understand why. I mean, and let me be fair to Andrea. Okay, because I want to say something. I get mad at politicians and rant and call them scumbags and thieves and say they should all be in jail.
It is your right to express yourself.
I don't actually think they should all be in jail. In fact, let's be honest. I've known many politicians, many people who have run for office, and when they run for office before they get elected, and sometimes until after the first term, they actually go in there and they try and do some of the things that they said they were going to do, okay? But they hit this brick wall, okay? The whip says you got to vote this way on that. The leader says you got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. You got to go and you got to do the fundraisers. You got to go to the business luncheons. They spend more time raising money
than doing the actual job they hire for.
And kissing ass, okay, than they do their job. And then about the second term, they get Alzheimer's, okay? Soon as the votes are counted and they get their second term, they all get instant Alzheimer's. It's like taking an Alzheimer's pill. And they instantly have a brain meltdown. Their memory is lost. And they don't remember that in the election 2 days before, I promised to do this, and I swore I'd do this, and if I don't do this, I said I'd resign, and this is the most important issue there is. And then as soon as they get elected, everything they said that they do disappears.
Maybe it's a defense mechanism. Yeah. They know they can't get anywhere, so they say, why bother?
Well, that's what happens, okay? So in all the years I've been in politics, I staged debates with the small parties. When the broadcasters wouldn't do it, we staged national leaders debates with all the small parties in 1993 and 2000. And in the 2000 debate, the Natural Law Party was there. The Natural Law Party was run by the guru.
It was federal,
right.
Yes.
The Natural Law Party was from Maharishi Yogi, and they believed in yogic flying and harmony and sweetness and light and blah blah blah. Okay, great. But let me tell you, he was asked what he thought was the most important change that we can make in our democracy, and his answer was, Neil Patterson, the leader, what we need is a government of national unity. What we need to do is everybody go vote for who they really like to vote for, and not vote strategically to defeat somebody else. And after it's all over, we'll go and get the best MPs from all of the parties that got elected. We'll form a cabinet of national unity. And what we'll do is on all the things that we agree on, we'll pass all those bills in the first 6 months. And then we'll fight. But at least in the first 6 months after every election, a whole bunch of legislation will get
like
passed.
A honeymoon kind of thing.
Okay, before we're screwing each other in the sleep and stabbing each other in the back and feeding each other hemlock, okay, we'll actually pass some bills that we ran on. And you know what would happen? He said 6 months later we'd actually agree on a few more, and we'd actually agree on a few more, and we'd get to the point where we'd actually be able to do what we got elected to do, because we wouldn't spend every moment of our day pointing out what a bad person the other person is, because I'm better, because you should vote for me.
At cost of taxpayers.
At the cost of taxpayers. So it stops the 24/7, 365 politics. The day you get elected, the first and only job you have is to get reelected. It's not your job to do what you promised to do.
No, it is just...
It's your job to get reelected.
It's like climbing from the ladder of the corporation.
Exactly.
As you know, I don't have
Sorry
to...
about the level there, folks.
As you know, better than me, of course, that we run Westminster parliamentary system.
Yeah.
And what you just described, based on the answer of that gentleman in your debate, it's the
Westminster Party.
System.
Yes, the opposition is opposing, but it doesn't oppose on every bill. In fact,
they should be coalition, voting coalition. They shouldn't be a party.
Exactly.
And I think after 1972, when they put that name of the parties in the ballot, they screwed it up. Yes.
Well, you raise a very interesting point, and it's very good that you know the point. And I don't know more than you do. We just know what we know. But you're right about the Westminster parliamentary system, and this is a very interesting thing. The big knock against proportional representation is the fringe parties, form a coalition government with the major parties, and you got all these lunatics in office. But that's not what happens. In most countries that have true mixed member proportional representation, the major parties end up getting together. In Germany, the strongest economy on earth, the liberals and the conservatives got together and formed a government of national unity. And in Great Britain, which was designed for a two-party system, and you have three parties, two of the parties got together and let one govern. In Ontario, after the end of the 42 years of the Conservatives and Bill Davis, David Peterson and Bob Rae signed an accord that gave David Peterson 2 years with a majority government, where Bob Rae said, I won't vote against you on a single thing. Do whatever you want. So, and then Stephen Harper says it's illegitimate to have a coalition government, and it violates democracy. All it did was violate his goddamn majority. Pardon my language again.
It violates his party.
Yeah, his party, but not the rest of us.
Let me go from the issue of the NDP. Oh, by the way, the last point about NDP, I wanted to mention that, again, I want to have your opinion about that. Last general election federally, 2011, when NDP became the official opposition, my argument was that is not because of NDP, it's because of demise of Bloc Québécois.
No, it was the demise of the Liberals. It was the
demise
of the Liberals.
No, what I'm saying is they took more seats from the that was held by Bloc Québécois members in Quebec.
They got 40 seats in Quebec.
Yes,
okay. But they also got 60 seats elsewhere.
Oh, I understand that. But they used to have around 40, 42 themselves.
40 to 50.
So, yes, they got about 20 from the Liberals.
Well, they only used to have 30.
38
was the most they ever had.
30, yes.
Okay.
So my question is, I want to have your view on that. That is past. Yeah. But let's say 2015. Mm-hmm. And I am pretty sure those people in Black Quebecois don't say, oh, we are defeated, then we pack and go. They are probably reorganizing themselves for another series of the campaign for the federal election.
It'll be a long time before the Bloc Québécois wins 20 seats in Quebec in a federal election again.
And why is that? That is why I want to.
Look what just happened to when you have a Péquiste minority government, okay?
Okay.
And then she goes and gets the billionaire.
Yeah,
who likes the billionaire capitalist who destroys unions, who hates little people, who has the...
Oh, you're talking about Quebecois?
Of course.
Okay.
Who's the magnet, who wants people in Quebec to be unilingual French so that they can't leave Quebec and get a job and their wages can be $3 an hour. That's what this is all about. It's a hidden business agenda to keep the people in Quebec as slaves within their own economy because they're unilingual and they can't compete anywhere else except working as slaves. And what happened was the average person in Quebec realized that this silver spoon billionaire might get a majority. And then they introduced it's illegal to be anything but a lane français law. You can't wear a cross, you can't wear a hijab. And people realized that they're nothing but a bunch of racist Republicans. Okay? That the party was taken over by a rich woman with a rich husband who lived in a $5 million mansion. And it was going to be taken over by a guy that is a billionaire. So it's gone. The referendum movement is gone.
But that is provincially.
It's gone federally. It's the same thing. The most popular leader in Quebec was Lucien Bouchard and
Jules Duceppe.
And Duceppe.
Yeah.
Okay, Duceppe got those seats.
Yes.
Okay?
And now he's not in the game.
And it's over. And if he thought that there was any coming back, he'd come back.
He would have stayed.
And he's not coming back. So, and look, and the other thing that we have, and this is the thing that happened as you're talking about Jack Layton, you've got to remember the Liberal vote in Quebec collapsed, eh?
Yes.
Okay. There was a time when the Liberals had a majority with Ontario and Quebec, and they didn't need a single seat. In Atlantic Canada, they didn't need a single. In fact, they had a majority once where they didn't have a single seat in the West except
for
one.
13 years.
They had one seat in the West. Okay?
Yeah, for 13 years.
Trudeau went in fact, in that election, Trudeau went to Ed Broadbent and said, put some of your NDP guys in my cabinet. I got no representatives in Western Canada.
Or I don't have any good people.
And Ed had his 34 seats, and Ed was drinking the Kool-Aid and smoking the dope. And I'm going to win the government. They're all psychopaths.
Maybe some of these people are delusional.
They're all delusional. They're all delusional. They all think that they can be king.
I mean the way that I have seen, I have studied the history of at least 147 years of Canada.
Yeah.
I think the chance of NDP winning lottery is more than becoming a government federally.
Once Bob Rae got a majority and then just didn't do what he said he'd do.
No, it is with provincial. I'm talking about federal.
No, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, once Bob Rae, look at the NDP have been in government in Western Canada, and in Atlantic Canada, and they don't govern badly. They don't generally run big deficits. They actually act like conservatives.
Saskatchewan is one.
Saskatchewan is a great example. Okay?
Yes.
The NDP didn't bankrupt that province. Okay, it was the to grant his divine conservatives that bankrupted the province. Mm-hmm. As soon as you give a conservative majority, people go to jail, and if they don't go to jail, it's because you're not prosecuting them. Because as soon as a conservative gets elected, the thievery starts. Look at our Prime Minister has sold the silverware out of the House of Commons restaurant for $600 on a website.
That. Maybe we needed that.
Like, the Liberals might be thieves, but they don't steal the silverware and empty the cupboards and rip the wiring out of the house and the plumbing. These Tories are unbelievable. The only good Tory is a suppository. You can't vote conservative if you have a conscience. In fact, read the Harvard study. If you support the conservatives, you are basically a sick, evil person.
But some argue that the conservative we have is not
the conservatives
really,
we have.
With the conservative we have, they are not real conservative.
No.
They are just outcome of the birth of the Reform and Alliance Reform Party.
The Republicans.
Yes.
They're profiteers. They're sell all the assets, take everything that's owned by the public, and give it to rich guys. That's what they're all about. A true conservative cares about the environment. A true conservative cares about
family and foundation,
cares about jobs, cares about the economy, doesn't sell your resources to the highest bidder. That's what a conservative. We don't have no conservatives.
One of my candidates choose to run locally for the first time is the president of the progressive Canadian
There you
who is real conservative.
A real conservative,
He's a
right.
religious man,
Right.
and he's very helpful to people. And I witnessed personally, firsthand, that how he devoted his time to just help a young
Exactly.
runaway kid.
Kids,
We
exactly.
thought any expectation.
Yeah, just goes out
He
and
just
gives
put
and gives.
two hours
Yeah.
of his time.
Yeah.
We sat with him because I was curious to see why he does that.
Yeah.
Going back from the NDP and liberals, coming back to liberals now. Just for
Just in time for the Liberals?
yeah, just in time for
Okay,
the liberals,
okay.
and they are all, first of all, in last, let me see, after not Chrétien, after Paul Martin.
Yes.
After Paul Martin, or even after John Chrétien for that matter, they always campaign very badly. Extremely badly.
Look at John Chrétien didn't campaign that great.
No,
John Chrétien.
I mean after the majority gone,
Yeah.
they really showed how they campaign. Put
Yeah,
it this
but
way.
John Chrétien got lucky because John Tory was Kim Campbell's campaign manager, and he ran an ad with John Chrétien talking out of the side of his mouth and ridiculed him, and that's what got John Chrétien a big majority, more than anything.
Okay.
Okay. But let me finish. Okay. So because John Chrétien, did these, I got the prime minister. A proof is a proof is a proof. Is that proof is a proof the proof? I mean, okay, the guy was an embarrassment for Christ's sakes, but he got a big majority because we'd rather have him than the other scumbag, right? It's like Rob Ford. Rob Ford got elected not because everybody believed him,
because they
but he
didn't like
wasn't
the
one of
other.
those scumbags. He was going to end the gravy train. Well, he turned out to be a bigger scumbag than anybody that he replaced. Okay, because he's an out-and-out liar, and he got caught with his issues. And rather than coming clean and saying,
Hey,
okay, I got
like
an issue, I'm going to go do my 60 days, my 90 days. Here's my chip. Here's my chip. He didn't. He lied and lied and lied. And now he's going to do his 60, 90 days. And guess what? He's going to come out with his chip. He's going to come out weighing 275 pounds. And he's going to say, I was wrong, 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 and he's going to win again.
Well, I know that.
So, I mean, if he comes out and stays clean, he'll win again.
But going back to the liberals.
So back to the Liberals.
And
get
just
lost.
just in time.
Just in time.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is why I
So
am
the
here.
point I was-
That
the
is
point-
why
yeah.
I am here.
The point I was making,
my
yeah.
question was
They campaign
they
badly.
campaign badly,
Right.
and
Right.
the best idea so far they come across for the last 10 years is every campaign they lose, they change the leader. They
Yeah.
never give a chance to a leader to grow or whatever it is.
Well, but their last two leaders before Just in Time, had the two largest disasters in the history of the Liberal Party. When your leader takes you from first to third place, you don't keep your leader. Okay? But, Canadians let the Harper government play low ball, slime ball, dirty politics and do these character assassinations on Stéphane Dion and on
Ignatieff.
and on Ignatieff.
Yeah.
And Jack Layton was part of it. He
Of
was
course.
in it. We just found out in the last week that he was in on it with Harper all along.
Oh, I knew that. I knew that long time ago.
yeah.
Not based on documents, based on what I observed and my past experience.
Right.
Especially after he died, and they provided they got about $400,000 of the taxpayers for the state funeral.
Okay,
or
well, I'm not going to go there.
No,
Okay,
no,
the guy was an opposition leader that died in office.
Well, I know, but in no opposition.
Whether the finance minister deserved, Herb Gray died. We didn't do anything for him. Nobody even showed up. Okay, and Herb Gray was a Liberal finance minister for all those years.
No, my point was not my point was not the estate funeral. My point was when Harper jumped in the wagon, immediately said, "We have to do that eagerly."
Of course.
That part I am talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, okay.
So that tells me there is some sort of the.
Well, there was quid pro quo there. That was going on. But let's talk about the Liberals. See, people understand. About every 30 years, the Liberals discover democracy.
Every 30 years.
About 30 years. Pierre Trudeau got elected in 1968 by promising us participatory democracy.
Okay.
Electoral reform.
Yes.
He promised it. Okay? That was the great gift that he was going to give us. He was going to bring us into the modern age. And then he got a big majority. And that was the end of it. It never came out of his mouth again. Except he did actually, years later, when the Liberals, like I said, had one seat in the West, he did go to Ed Broadbent and say, okay, enough. Let's do this. Let's make sure that these Conservatives never, ever, 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 ever get a majority ever again in Canada. Let's make a deal. And Broadbent said no. Now listen, so Justin Trudeau runs as the new shining light of the Liberal Party, and he says, I'll allow free votes, I'll allow the opposition to amend the bill and pass it without the government falling. We'll work together, we'll do politics differently. And he says about if you want to vote in favor of abortion, you can't run as one of my candidates.
So it's
and he's sounding exactly like the rest of them. And I had a lot of hope for Justin Trudeau. I really did.
You did?
I really did. I thought, maybe we got a guy here who's been around long enough. He's seen the way his father operated. He's seen the way it's operated since. He's sitting in the House of Commons watching Stephen Harper, and he's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? And I thought maybe the guy is actually going to do it. Maybe he's going to give us electoral reform. Maybe MPs are going to be accountable to their constituents and not to the party. And now, I don't know what I would say that.
You have a very high hope. I admire you.
Well, that's what I said. I don't know if I'd say that today.
So my question, again, come back to the just in time for
Just
the
in
Liberal. What do you see? What would happen? I mean, how do you foresee 2015 if he stays a leader? Because I am not sure.
People got to understand there's some simple mathematics here.
Yeah,
okay?
I am all about math and numbers.
And you'll get this, okay? And most people don't get the mathematics, okay? The Conservatives got 160 seats still, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Okay. And the NDP got 100.
Yes.
And the Liberals got 38, 40, whatever it is this week.
41.
41, 42, whatever it is. Okay, all right. So the Conservatives got to lose 50 or 60 seats.
In order to become...
No, and they give those 50, 60 seats to the NDP, to the Liberals, all of them. The NDP still have more seats than the Liberals. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, so the Conservatives got to lose 60 seats and the NDP got to lose 30, 40 seats for Justin to get a minority. For Justin to get a majority in a 338-seat House, he needs 170 seats. And he's got 40. He needs 130 seats, which means he's got to wipe the NDP off the map and take 70 seats from the Conservatives. Let me tell you something about a democracy, the way our system works. When the right-wing vote is conservative and it's 35% of the vote, and the middle-left vote is 65% of the vote split between the Liberals and the NDP, there ain't 170 Liberal seats. It's a mathematical impossibility.
Not only that, there is 3 other seats that will be added next year. So it will be 338. So they have to have
170 seats is half of, it's okay. Yeah. It's 340. So there's no majority government there for anybody except Harper. Harper's the guy that can win another majority. Or, even better, if Harper takes a walk in the snow and they go and get someone that they can wash the stink off for a week and a half before we take the clothespins off our nose and find out that the suppository we're going to get is just as bad as the suppository we just had. So there's no majority for just in time now that he's proving that he's not a Democrat, that the Liberal Party is the same old Liberal Party, and that Gerald Butts, who elected Dalton McGuinty Premier, is going to be the guy running Canada for the next 4 years.
Well, no, because I noticed even in the call for the by-elections, Justin Trudeau even put his guys or girls nominated without even the proper contest.
Kathleen Wynne, Niagara Falls. There's a candidate wants to run named Frank Rasso. Frank says, I want to run for the nomination. They say, you can't run for the nomination. Why? Because you're not a politician. He says, that's why I want to run. It's my community. I run I got an idea for the racetrack. I run the auto club. I live here. I want to run because we need to change the way we do politics. No, we're going to have a preferred candidate. We're going to appoint a city councillor, and we're going to only have one person on the ballot, and we're going to have everybody out to come to a nomination meeting, and they're going to vote for her because they can't vote for anybody else. Even the Green Party, when it elects its leaders and its executives, has a none of the above. And if none of the above wins, that's what happens. None of the above wins. So,
the hierarchy of the mainstream parties is very disturbing.
Yes.
Nevertheless, about the last words, we are getting close to the end of our program. Practically, for the ordinary Joe,
yes.
What do you suggest? What do you prescribe?
I suggest that you wake up and use the tools that we have to bring about change. It doesn't take a lot of people to bring about a change, eh?
No, it takes just
it takes half a dozen. It takes 2 or 3 to start a party and get the ball rolling. Okay, the ball is rolling. Okay, the fight is on. Write to the CRTC. Go crtc.gc.ca. Go Elections Ontario. Go. Find the complaint form and say, how come I can't see all 20 party leaders and all 20 party candidates? How come I don't know that there's even 20 parties in my province? How come these broadcasters can do this? How come news people control and manipulate our elections? Your elections, Ontario, you're supposed to make sure elections are fair. How come you don't tell people they can refuse their ballot and that they can bankrupt the political parties? And the CRTC, how come you give these guys licenses to gross $40 billion a year in revenue, Bell and Rogers? $40 billion in revenue. No competition. But they have to enhance the political fabric of the nation. How come you don't make them obey their license conditions? And to the Federal Combines Tribunal. How do you allow 2 companies to own all the media outlets in Canada and let them get away with suppressing our democracy? Bust Bell up. Bust Rogers up. Just like in the United States, the FCC is busting up these big companies.
If you remember, about a few months back, Verizon tried to get in, and then I used to hear and see on TV and the radio.
The world will end. Prices will go up.
And funny thing, as soon as they defeat that, they said Verizon backed up.
Yeah.
As soon as they did that,
they raised their prices. They raised their rates.
Yes.
Well, if you want justice, go to a strip bar, get your $20 table dance. If you want to get screwed, go to court, right? Go to Parliament.
Well,
believe your politician, you'll get screwed.
Greg, it was nice to have some fresh ideas, unvarnished,
Thank you.
to be broadcast. And we are reaching to the end of the time tonight. First, I want to thank you.
Thank you for
not
having
for
me.
being in here, for being informative, being honest, straightforward, no politically correct statement.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
and I am glad that I see someone else besides myself
right.
can do this thing. Although I get the label of you haven't lived all your life in Canada, so you can't talk about that. But
you
again,
live here,
it's their opinion.
You have the same rights as anybody else in this country. That's why this is the most beautiful country in the world.
Of course, in my pamphlet I said that is the only place that I don't have to travel.
Right.
I wanted Chinese food and Chinese culture.
Right down the street.
Greek food and Greek there.
Right.
Why should I spend $2,000 airfare if I can spend 1/4 of that and enjoy for 1 week in one of the areas? Thank you very much, and I wish you best in your newly registered party. And I hope, may all of things that I do, I am 55 years plus, and I hope all of this that you and I and people like us doing to just advocate and educate public, come back to the younger generation and
learn.
Choose someone better than we did.
They'll learn. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. It was Independent Nation for May 26, 2014. And please don't forget, participate, vote, be volunteer, and even become a candidate. Good night.